In Hong Kong, there is a legend about the last tram to Happy Valley. They say that after midnight, an extra tram runs on the old tracks, one that doesn't appear on any schedule. This tram only stops for those who are lost in both body and spirit. I never believed these stories until last Tuesday night. I had worked late in Central, missing the last regular tram by mere minutes. As I stood there in the damp night air, I noticed a tram approaching silently. Its lights were dimmer than usual, and it moved with an unnatural smoothness. The destination board simply read Happy Valley in faded characters. And the interior was empty save for one elderly woman sitting at the very back. She wore traditional black samfu and stared straight ahead. I took a seat near the door, feeling an inexplicable chill. The tram moved through the sleeping city, but something felt wrong. The streets outside seemed too quiet, too still. As we passed through Wan Chai, I noticed the elderly woman was now looking directly at me. Her eyes held a sadness that seemed to span generations. She slowly raised a bony finger and pointed outside. Through the window, I saw figures standing in the shadows between buildings, motionless, watching our tram pass. The tram continued without stopping at any stations. The city outside grew increasingly distorted. Neon signs blurred into colorful smears. Buildings melted into strange shapes. I realized we were no longer in the Hong Kong I knew. The elderly woman suddenly spoke, her voice like rustling leaves. My blood ran cold. I reached for the emergency stop button, but my hand passed straight through it. The woman continued, "This is the tram of memories, carrying echoes of those who cannot move on. You stepped aboard because part of you has already given up." I looked at my hands and saw they were becoming translucent. The tram began slowing as we approached Happy Valley. But it wasn't the Happy Valley I remembered. As the doors hissed open, I made a desperate decision about the red thread of fate. I tore a string from my jacket and tied it around the handrail, creating a connection to the world I knew. "I choose to live," I shouted and leaped backward. I woke up on a bench at the Happy Valley tram stop, shivering in the morning dew. Workers were beginning their day, giving me strange looks. On my wrist was a faint red mark where I'd tied the string. Now I watch the trams carefully, and I've noticed something strange. They say every city has its secrets, but Hong Kong has entire worlds hidden beneath its streets. My name is Alex Chen, and I'm an urban explorer. For years, I've documented forgotten places across this city. But what I found last month, this is my confession. This is my warning. If you value your sanity, your very soul, never ride the last train from Admiralty Station. It started as another urban exploration project. I was documenting the old service tunnels beneath Admiralty, the ones that were sealed off during the 2014 renovations. According to my research, there was an entire abandoned level that never made it to the official maps. Level B3, they called it. A ghost station that existed only on paper. That Friday night, I waited until the station closed. Slipping past the night watchman was easier than I expected. The elevator control panel showed only one button, a faded Chinese character that looked ancient. Below it, in small English letters, for lost souls. I laughed it off. Some maintenance worker's idea of a joke. But my curiosity was piqued. I stepped inside, my camera bag feeling heavier than usual. The descent was wrong. Too smooth, too silent. No mechanical sounds, just a faint humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. I watched the floor numbers on my phone's altimeter plunge far below any documented levels. B5, B7, B9. When the doors finally opened, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The platform was straight out of 1970s Hong Kong. Vintage posters advertised movies long forgotten. The air smelled of old newspapers and incense. And the train? It was one of the original MTR models, preserved perfectly. But the most chilling part, through the windows, I could see passengers, dozens of them, sitting perfectly still. As I stepped onto the platform, the elevator doors closed behind me. I heard the mechanism lock. No going back now. The train doors hissed open silently. That's when I noticed the details. The passengers wore clothing from different decades. A woman in 1960s cheongsam, a man in 1980s business suit, a teenager in 1990s fashion, a museum of lost times. I forced myself to board. The air inside was freezing. As I found a seat, the doors closed. The man across from me held a newspaper dated March 18th, 1979, the day the MTR first opened. His eyes were closed, but I could have sworn I saw his fingers twitch. The train began moving with unnatural silence. We passed through stations that shouldn't exist. Hungry Ghost Plaza, with shadowy figures on the platform. Memory Lane Station, where the walls seemed to shift and change. At Regret Crossing, an entire family stood waiting, their faces etched with eternal sadness. None of the ghosts on the platform tried to board. They just watched. Suddenly, the elderly woman next to me spoke. "You shouldn't be here, child." I nearly jumped out of my skin. Her eyes were milky white, but she seemed to be looking right through me. "This is the collecting train," she whispered. "It gathers what the city has lost." "What do you mean, collecting?" I asked, my voice trembling. She smiled, a sad, empty expression. "Lost memories, lost souls, lost time. The city forgets, but the train remembers everything." She pointed to a young man across the aisle. He boarded in 1993. The train began slowing. again. Through the window, I saw a station called the Concourse of Fading Memories. The platform was crowded with translucent figures, all reaching toward our train. Some were crying, others looked desperately hopeful. "They want to remember," the old woman said, "but the train only takes those who have forgotten too much." That's when I noticed the conductor approaching. He wore an old-fashioned MTR uniform, but his face kept changing. One moment he was young, then old, then middle-aged. He stopped by my seat. "Ticket," he said, his voice echoing with multiple tones. I fumbled for my octopus card. He shook his head. "Not that kind of ticket." "What do you want?" I asked, terrified. The conductor's eyes glowed faintly. "A memory. Something precious. The more it hurts to lose, the longer your ride." The old woman tugged my sleeve. "Don't give him your first love," she warned. I did. Now I can't even remember my daughter's face. I thought of my childhood, building Lego with my father. The memory surfaced vividly. The conductor smiled. "That will do." He reached toward my forehead, and I felt a terrible pulling sensation. The memory began to fade, turning gray and distant. I screamed and pulled back, breaking the connection. Anger surged through me. "I'm not giving you anything," I shouted. The entire train fell silent. Every ghostly passenger turned to look at me. The conductor's face solidified into a stern, middle-aged man. "Then you will join them permanently," he declared. The lights in the carriage flickered violently. I remembered my camera. Urban legend says ghosts hate being photographed. It steals their power. I grabbed my camera and started shooting flash photos. The ghosts recoiled, hissing. The conductor shielded his eyes. "Stop that!" he roared. But I kept shooting, moving toward the emergency exit. The old woman grabbed my arm. "The brake," she whispered urgently. "Between carriages, the manual override." I nodded thanks and burst through the connecting door. There it was, an old-fashioned emergency brake handle behind a glass case. I smashed the glass with my camera. As I pulled the brake, the train screeched violently. Ghosts were thrown from their seats. The conductor stumbled toward me, his form flickering between different people. "You cannot escape," he screamed. The train doors flew open, revealing we were stopped in a dark tunnel. I didn't hesitate. I jumped. I landed hard in the dark. The train already pulling away. In the distance, I heard the conductor's final words. "We'll meet again, Alex Chen." I sat in the pitch black, trembling, until I saw a faint light in the distance. A maintenance tunnel. I followed the tunnel for what felt like hours. Eventually, I found a ladder leading up to a manhole cover. Pushing it open, I emerged into the early morning light of Wan Chai. People were starting their day, completely unaware of the world beneath their feet. Back home, I checked my camera. The photos were all there, but the ghosts appeared as blurry smears of light, except one, A clear shot of the old woman, smiling sadly. When I zoomed in, I noticed something chilling. She was holding a small sign that read, "Help us." I researched for weeks. The accidents, the disappearances. 1979, a maintenance worker vanished. 1993, a student never came home. 2005, a businessman last seen at Admiralty. All connected. All likely passengers on that ghost train. Last week, I went back to Admiralty during daylight. The service elevator was gone, replaced by a solid wall. But as I turned to leave, I saw her, the old woman from the train, standing at the platform edge. She smiled and faded away. On the bench, where she'd been sitting, lay a single item. It was a Metro employee badge from 1978. The photo showed a young woman, the same old woman from the train. Her name was Lena, first and only female engineer on the original MTR construction team. She disappeared during final inspections. Now I understand. She wasn't a passenger. She was a prisoner. They all are. The train isn't just collecting memories. It's trapping souls. And the conductor, I think he's the original chief engineer who died during construction. He's still running his railway, forever expanding his collection. Sometimes, at night, I hear train whistles that don't exist. My photos sometimes show new ghostly faces in the background. And last night, I dreamt of Lena. She was standing at the foot of my bed, pointing urgently at my window. I looked outside. There, across the street, stood the conductor. He tipped his hat and pointed at his watch, an invitation. He knows I'm still connected to the train. He knows I can still hear its call. So this is my warning to all urban explorers, all night owls, all curious souls. The Midnight Metro is real. It's always looking for new passengers. If you see that elevator, if you hear that silent train, run. Because once you board, you might never leave. As for me, I'm preparing. I've gathered salt, iron, old photographs, everything the legends say can protect against ghosts. Because I know he'll be back. The conductor always collects his due. And next time I won't be running. I'll be going back to free Lena and all the others. Wish me luck.